Blog
context of white supremacy. Gus T Renegade in for another program, hopefully to share constructive information for folks, non-white people, black people, victims of racism, white supremacy. Before we get started with the broadcast for the evening, this would be Saturday, January the 15th, 2011. Before we get started, there's one sound clip I neglected to toss into the anti-sexual effeminization context of white supremacy mix. I did have it, I just didn't play before I lost my switchboard. So before we get started, I want to get that sound clip in because it just would have been a nice cherry on top. And for those who missed it, the program from Friday, January the 14th, we had a nice collage of programs dealing with so-called homosexuality. So check it out. A lot of different folks who've shared on that topic over the past 2 years at the context of white supremacy. Hopefully you should be able to play that with other people who are confused about the so-called gay rights issue, and it will clear up some of their confusion, hopefully. But this is the one clip that definitely should have been included.
The next question was, what do white people, in plain and direct English, what do they talk about related to black people when in the absence of black people, specifically with regards to homosexuality among black people?
Homosexuality. It's interesting because I used to be friends with a lot of homosexual men. They were homosexual white men, and one man in particular, every time I would meet someone, he was convinced that he was going to recruit that person to play for his team. And for some reason, I always was, it sounds really strange, but I was always okay with homosexuality in white men, but it just didn't seem natural in black men.
Wow.
And I'm not sure why I thought that way. I just always felt that way.
Wow. Wow. Very interesting.
I know when I see...
Thank you, Mr. Nero. I'm sorry, Joanna, go ahead.
It's like when I used to hang out at the gay bars with my gay friends, which I don't anymore, but when I did, it was always it was perfectly natural for me to see white men dancing with other white men. But then when I would see a black man, it would seem so out of place and so strange to me. Like it just wasn't natural, you know?
I know. As Mr. Nero said, I agree wholeheartedly. And I hope folks at War on the Horizon, and they're super supportive. I just, this is why I have white people on the program. Same question this time with regards to adopting black children. What
context of white supremacy? Suspected racist. You can go back in the archives. I believe that's October 2010. Go in the archives and you can hear the complete broadcast from that particular suspected racist. Again, with the archives, I want to make sure I'm saying this regularly. Hopefully I'll remember to say it at least 5 times before the month ends. The archives, we are nearing the 300th program. If you go through the archives and you have any trouble accessing a program, please let me know. When I was compiling programs to make the broadcast with all of the sound clips, I ran into at least 4 programs that they were not working, meaning you could not download them, you could not listen to them as streaming audio on the internet. They just were not available at all. And I had to contact the white people at Blog Talk Radio to fix the problem. They were able to correct it immediately, and they fixed all 4 so that they're available now. But there's so many programs, it's difficult for me to be able to check that. I'm going to request that the white people at Blog Talk Radio check all of the programs to see that they are working. Excellent suggestion from Non-Mighty Wick. But anybody out there, please download the programs if you think they are constructive, and let me know if you have any difficulties or issues accessing any of the programs, and I will contact the white people. And you can contact the white people at Blog Talk Radio too. So thank you. Again, we are fundraising for the entire month. That's why we're broadcasting every day. Be on the grind for 2011, and hopefully if you find the program to be of constructive value, support. Myriad of ways, books from the Amazon wish list. You can invest. The link is right below in every description. It's the last line. You can invest. Also, and really quick, the investment, really want to get that Skype 1-year plan so that I can call globally. I think that would really improve the program to be able to hear from non-white people in all different parts of the planet. Just really think that would add a whole nother dimension. So I'm very much looking forward to that. Another way that you can aid the context of white supremacy, post the show. If you have like a blog, they have code where you can get the player. You can put the player if you have a blog, or you can post it on your Facebook. Thank you to everybody who posts the show on Facebook. I see a lot of those links flashing by. Thank you. But that's really helpful. Like, that's a way that a lot of people are able to access the show. So try to share it. If you think it's constructive, try to share it. Blogs, other sites, Facebook, Twitter, anything that you use of that nature. Try to share the program so that we can continue to increase the number of people who are listening, and hopefully a lot less confused about racism, white supremacy. And let me make sure I clarify, non-white people, not really looking to pick up white listeners. All righty. We will hop into this evening's broadcast. Before we go any further, I do want to make sure I clarify the CNN video of the missing 17-year-old black female. I included that just because I thought it was important, and it was on CNN. Someone put it on my Facebook, so just thought it was important. I know when black children disappear or something bad happens to them, white people tend not to pay too much attention to that. They've had all the coverage of what happened in Arizona this week and everything. You got non-white victims every day who are being mistreated and not being helped. So that's why I included it. It has nothing to do with what we're going to talk about this evening, I don't think, but we'll see. This broadcast, we're supposed to be discussing racism, white supremacy at the collegiate level. I had several folks, listeners, investors, who had discussed this issue previously. They had talked about different problems they have encountered at the university level, be it instructors, white instructors who were most likely practicing racism against them, be it other classmates who were making things difficult, be it non-white instructors who were making things difficult for them because they were confused, because they work for white people, just a myriad of problems. Other classmates, socially, what to do. Just it can present a wealth of issues for a non-white student entering the college university setting. In fact, David Allen, he is an admitted white supremacist at the University of Washington. He is actually the chair of the Women's Studies Department. He said that it would be accurate to say that colleges and universities, those are institutions of racism, white supremacy, meaning these are places where you fine-tune and refine racism, white supremacy, and study it in depth. So yeah, really interesting environment. Hopefully we'll have a lot of different folks to call in who are students, were students, or faculty members, and have experiences with racism, white supremacy at the collegiate level. And hopefully we can come up with some suggestions, a way to reduce the amount of problems that non-white students experience, give out some techniques, things you can do to try to, not make things so difficult for you. Before I hit the phone lines, I want to double check to make sure Justice is in with us. Justice, are you on the line as well?
Hello?
Yes, ma'am. We can hear you. Oh, I did hear you. I don't hear you now.
Can I be heard?
Okay. Yes, I can hear you now. Groovy. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
She's doing great. Right on. Do you have any thoughts, anything you want to share before we see if we have anybody on the line that wants to hop into the discussion?
I do not have anything at this time.
Okay. If you have questions, because I'm gonna go right to the phone lines, make this more of discuss. I didn't intend this to be chat. This was supposed to be an open dialogue, encouraging folks to call in. So call in. If you know any non-white students, that you think they should participate in this dialogue or listen, Twitter, text them, whatever, let them know. But yeah, I'm very interested in hearing different stories. I know there's some folks who are informed on white supremacy and struggling with the whole college thing. So yeah, I'm very eager to hop into it. But yeah, Justin.
Was that a clip earlier?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
It was from the program we did back in October, the early part of October with the suspected racist white female.
Okay.
Yeah, quite a ways back. Maybe I might link it in the description. That way folks can find that program easily if you want to go and hear the whole broadcast. But yeah, if you have any questions, feel free, hop in. If you need something explained, a term, definition, or if you just have questions about something that is being said, feel free to hop right in.
Okay.
Groovy. Okay. I guess the people who have already called in, and I'll give out the number. The number is 347-215-6071. 347-215-6071. Out of all the people that have called in right now, if you are interested in talking, press 1. And I want to make sure that we are staying on topic. So this is not just a general discussion. If you just want to talk about something else related to racism, we're on topic because people did request to have a program dealing with this. So if you called in, raise your hand, and I can bring you in in the dialogue on racism at the collegiate level. Also, want to make sure I get this in really quick as well. People outside the United States, I was thinking Europe, that's really some of my white identification and victimization, but anywhere outside of the United States, that area of the world, I definitely want to have several programs before the month ends that are more inclusive of people who are outside the states. So I definitely want to change the time up for the program. It will most likely be early evening London time. So that would be, I'm thinking 6, 7-ish, so that you all can call in. Skype is available. If you have Skype, you can call this program for free. And the audio quality is generally pretty reliable. I'm on Skype right now. So yeah, use Skype. You can call in for free. And I definitely would really appreciate the opportunity to hear from non-white people outside the states. I think that's really important, and I think it would really benefit the non-white team for us to be able to have dialogue and talk about what white people are doing against us worldwide. So please shoot me an email. Let me know if you know people that you think should be on the program who are outside the states. You can let me know that too. I would appreciate it. And definitely want to look to try and have several of those programs this month. I wish I should have had one already and failed to do so, but we'll work on correcting that. And I posted the links to the Jim Crow clothing. I was talking about that on a recent broadcast. It's on the Facebook group. All you have to do, it's linked on the show page for the cows. Just click it, and it should be recent if you're checking today, January 15th. Obviously, if you're listening to the archives, you might have to dig back, but I did post it. So you can see video of Mos Def modeling some of the Jim Crow clothing, and then I have some different pictures of the Jim Crow clothing line. All righty. Person who called in 2177, your line is open.
Hi, how are you?
I'm hanging. Oh, was this Hakima?
Yes, this
Greetings.
is me.
Good to hear from you. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm getting ready for classes in 2 weeks, so. Yeah. Outstanding. Do you want to tell them about your show? Because you moved from Blog Talk to a new spot. Do you want to tell them about that first? Yeah, I have a new show on Talk Shoe. I plan to do it regularly this time. I did one show so far, and it was about New Year's resolutions, the health resolutions, and I gave information on ways to, I guess,
I guess I can't think of a word for it. I guess ways to make that happen, I guess. So, because I notice, like, when people make health resolutions, they end up having issues with eating healthy, losing weight and things like that, because they don't tap into the issue. They don't look at it as solving a problem. They may have issues, may have eating issues, and they don't look at it, and I think that's why people have issues with it. And I just basically talked about it. Did you just understand what I just said?
Yes, I did.
Okay, because I'm kind of nervous still.
Oh.
Okay.
Don't be nervous. It's we're all victims here. All victims. Yeah. What is the address for folks so they can support your program?
It's www.talkshoe.com, and just type in Rising Phoenix Health Network and in the search button, and it'll come up. I can leave it on the comment page too.
I'll link it. How about that? Because I don't want to encourage people leaving comments, so I'll link it on the show page. Don't want to do anything to encourage comment leaving. I guess with your academic situation, I guess whatever you feel comfortable sharing with folks about where you are in your academic career, and then we can hop to the racism part.
Currently, I attend an all-women's college. I transferred I went to a community college called U.W. Waukesha, and I transferred to an all-women's Catholic college. And I'm a psychology major. I'm a junior, and I hope to become a physician in the future. So far I like the school I go to now. I noticed that there are a lot of non-white females that go there, Black, Asian, Hispanic, non-white Hispanic women that go there, and that really surprised me. But still, white women are in charge there, but it's nice to meet a lot of international students also. But just being at an all women's college is one thing that's coming up in my mind is, the role of white women, what they play in the system of white supremacy.
Let's see. How has your opinion of white women changed since you've been at this, all women's college?
They're dangerous. They're one thing about white women, I noticed that they tend to blame white males when they want to get out of talking about racism, white supremacy. They have a tendency to blame it on white men. They are the one in power, and it's them. It's not me. I'm a victim too. I'm a woman, and I've been victimized because of that. And they tend to blame white males a lot when they want to get out of talking about white supremacy in their role. And for example, when I took a class when I was at UW Waukesha before, and I took an accelerated class, and I noticed and it was about, we was reading this book called the narrative of a slave girl, I think. And she was like saying that the wife in the story was basically a victim. She couldn't stand up against white supremacy because she had to follow her husband. And I was just looking at her like, that's a bunch of BS, you know. That's a bunch of BS. So I noticed that a lot, and I think, you know, that makes them dangerous.
Were they talking? Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just curious. The book, were they talking about incidents in the life of a slave girl, Harriet Jacobs? Is that the book?
I think so. Yeah, that's what I remember. I dropped the class because that woman was confusing, so I dropped the class. I dropped it. I didn't know what, as a teacher, what she was trying to do. So I dropped the class. But I remember that.
Was this a literature class or what type of class?
Yes.
Okay.
English literature.
I have seen those, and the professor was a white woman. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have seen those white chicks clown in African American literature classes. I mean, that's not unusual at the collegiate level, to have a white person teaching a class on, you know, African American whatever. But I mean, I at the University of Washington, Sonnet Redmond, I believe that's her name, white woman, and she teaches on African American literature. And the books they were looking at, they looked at, see how good my memory is, Andrea Lee. They did, what else did they do from that class? Andrea Lee. I think they did Kindred, Octavia Butler. That book has come up on this program. Oh man, I mean, this was the whole fun part of the me finding out about this class was the books that they picked. And I'm gonna just look up the name really quick so that I'm not botching it. But they had all of these books picked that had all of this sexual intercourse between black females and white men mostly. And she even gave out some book recommendations for the summer, and it was the same thing. Like it just kept going. Like, and I was pointing that out. Go ahead.
And as far as the sex between black women and white males, I also noticed in the class how the white women, in a way, was blaming the black woman over the fact that the husband was chasing after her. I felt that way. The way
blaming her, how?
Like, how should I put it? Like she was causing the problem, I guess. I don't remember what was said because it was a long time ago, and I recall that, and I recall some of the women saying that, and saying that if I was in the mistress' shoes, I would be upset and things like that. So it's like they were like blaming the black female for the white male's behavior. So it seemed that way.
Wow, that's standard racist behavior, blaming the victim. That's so wild too about incidents in the life of a slave girl, Harriet Jacobs. Cowbells, although and the novel that Andrea Lee authored is Sarah Phillips. And that's another popular one that they use. She's Still Alive. It's a newer novel. It came out in 1984. There's a passage where this non-white female, these white men. They're in Europe. She's gone to Paris or something, and she's having sex with these white men, and they ask her to stand on this pedestal and disrobe for them, and really degrading act. And they reference her as a pasteurized negress.
Wow.
The white guys call her this, a pasteurized negress.
Wow. Okay. I read that book.
Sarah Phillips, Andrea Lee, and the author married a white person.
She must be talking about herself. With that story. Do you think?
Oh, I'm sure, consciously or subconsciously. I mean, it's no way that you cannot be translating your own experience and I mean, she fits the bill totally. It's about a non-white person who has lighter complexions, totally white identified. Like, there's a passage in the book where she's talking about her white schoolmates. I think her name was Gretchen, and how she would kill everybody in the universe if she could have blonde hair. And I'm not exaggerating. The passage is really detailed about her just unquenchable desire to be white. I mean, it's incredible. Sarah Phillips, written by Andrea Lee. It's not very long. You can read it pretty quickly. There's even a passage where she talks about dating this guy and how much he reminded her of Christopher Robin. Christopher Robbins is the white boy in Winnie the Pooh. And that's why I said white identified. White identified.
Wow. Christopher Robbins.
It's crazy. The person who called in from a block number with a hand up, I'm opening your line as well. If you want to talk, press 1, and I will open your line. We're staying on topic, though, so this is Racism College. Person from a block number, your line is open. And I do have one person to call who wanted to participate, so if you hear ringing, it's me dialing to get them on the line.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Oh, boy. Good evening.
A little bit of an echo.
Okay. How is it now?
Say something else.
How is the sound now? Is there echo?
I think we're good.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to start off by saying that I called in before. I'm a college student myself. I'm an upper junior. I'm almost a senior. And I'll just start by saying that with all of the years with me being at the City College of New York in New York, in Harlem, I've already understood and knew about the system of racism, white supremacy, even before I stepped into college. So I even before I stepped into college, I knew exactly what I was going to expect. So I would just recommend to non-white people to compose a library of books that are counter-racist in their nature. Books by Francis Cress Welsing, Neely Fuller Jr. The list goes on. Malcolm X. Study those books alongside the books and the assignments that you're dealing with at college, because there's a lot of work that is going to be given to you that, in my opinion, is most likely going to help to promote the system of racism, white supremacy. I mean, what can you do? You're in for non-whites in the college system. The white people are in charge. So what you have to do is you have to do the best that you can. Hello?
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 Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Yes?
I think, is this the cows?
Yes, it is.
What happened? How come the phone?
Gus is just probably trying to call somebody. Just hang on. You can keep talking.
Okay.
Okay, we got kind of crossed here.
Okay. Yeah, so if I can be heard, I would just like to continue that for non-whites in the white supremacist college system in the United States, in particular, I would just focus on learning as much as you can about the system of racism, white supremacy, while doing what you have to do to get through college. So I'll stop right there and see if anybody, because there's a whole lot that I would like to talk about, but I know that there's other people that want to share their thoughts.
That was my fault. I just added one caller to the line, and I didn't do it the most efficient way. So my fault, and we do have one extra caller. Wow. I hope that comes out in this program, what you just said, sir, about getting through with as few problems as possible, like not saying ignore racism, white supremacy, but, hopefully adding to your understanding of white supremacy as you move through to get, hopefully some skills that you can use as a victim, unless I misunderstood what you said.
Yes, that's very on point. Yeah.
Were you already informed about racism, white supremacy when you started out, or is that something you kind of picked up along the way?
I've learned about. It's very complex because there are different factors that contributed to me learning about racism, and I believe it stems from the influence of my uncles, going way back when I was very young, just a kid. My uncle Vincent, he was telling me about people like Dick Gregory when I was very young. And, I've seen tapes of Dick Gregory talk about things relating to racism, and those things enlightened me about a lot related to racism. So even before I stepped into college, I've been very informed about how evil racism, white supremacy is.
what's the biggest problem that you've had at the collegiate level?
The biggest problem? Well, I think that trying to tell the truth about the system, out in the open, that how can I say this? Yeah, because I've actually been doing very well with my classes, because like I said, I've already known about the system before I got into college. But I've been concentrating a lot on doing what I have to do to get through college. But the biggest problem that I've had in college, I don't know if I've experienced, any huge problems. But I think that it has been pretty challenging trying to tell the truth out in the open to other people in college.
That's interesting. I'm just curious. I think that might be something good to get from everybody, and we can kind of pull there. Hopefully that will pull out the most pressing concerns that non-white people are seeing at the collegiate level. What the other people that are on the line, and if you called in and you want to talk, press 1. The other 2 folks that are on the line, like what is or what was the biggest problem that you encountered or encountering at the collegiate level? Hakima and Dee.
I can't say for me the problem that was going on when I was at UW-Waukesha was a lot of white supremacy paraphernalia that was put on campus, and the crime for it, I guess the punishment for it was just a slap on the wrist. And I learned from other people that if you actually I guess, what's the term for it? What's the term? I guess the fact that if someone put like white supremacy paraphernalia on the campus, it was a slap on the wrist. Nothing was really done about it. And that was the issue when I was at UW-Waukesha. And that's basically that's it. And I guess for me too, I learned that I was afraid to talk about racism. Like if the actual subject was about racism and I had to write about it, I learned about myself that I was very scared to talk about it. I had to talk about white supremacy for my history class. It was about Native Americans and what was going on in the civil rights movement, and I was scared to talk about it. And I was thinking, is my history teacher going to give me a bad grade for telling the truth? And that's what I was thinking, and just thinking, the power that he had, that kind of power he had over me. And that went through my mind, but I went on ahead and I talked about white supremacy for my debate, and I got an A out of it. So, but just being afraid and knowing the power that my history teacher had over me like that, I was like, wow. Just having that understanding, the power that white people have. And if he didn't like me talking about white supremacy, he can give me a bad grade if he wants to.
Can I be heard?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, this is Dee. I might have missed some of the previous conversation, but in regards to my experiences at the university, now I attended university during the, I guess people would say, the heyday of the Black Power movement in the late 60s, well, really 70s. And but in the New England area, and I think a lot has to do as well with the type of university and the climate, notwithstanding that all of it is under a system of white supremacy. But having, attended several universities, I do know that there's a distinction. I having attended that particular time at what I guess people would consider a prestigious university, and tuition was probably more than what most, definitely more than what most blacks even had as a yearly income, and probably at that time some whites. So I think we had this myth sometime about being in a so-called well-to-do environment, that racism is a southern redneck, poor white trash type of phenomena, and of course I found that not to be the case. My having come into the university after the following the deaths of Martin Luther King and all of that that had transpired, though there was a small number of blacks, African Americans at that time, still we were pretty much united, and I think the feeling, having a sense of confidence and determination was kind of what got a lot of us through. I think for myself, now of course naturally that meant that I attended courses in which more than not, I was the only black person in the class. Of course, being at a large university, most of the classes were large lecture halls, etc. But I think the most uncomfortable experiences might have been still, even at that time, walking in and having everybody know, here comes a black person, right? And a feeling of people kind of, stereotyping you, expecting you to fail, or comparing themselves to you. I particularly remember one experience which I had an independent study class, which was a small class, which I did a research paper, and I was the only black one in it. Of course, I had to do presentations and speak, etc. And I remember after I did one of my presentations, the professor having called on me, then subsequently she called on the next person, and the guy who, was a white person said, well, I don't know if I can follow that. I found that, their stereotypes were, still expecting the inarticulate, stumbling, fumbling, bumbling black person. And they presented as if they were quite, shocked or surprised to find, not to find the stereotype. I also, interesting in terms of what I learned at that point in time, based on my limitations, was I noticed a lot of the conflict between, the whites in terms of how they perceived other whites. It was not, again, here, they perceived themselves as quite elitist, and class was, even among the whites, was something that was really very much talked about. It was not uncommon for them to talk about to refer to. Rarely would there be a Southern person, in any of the classes or in the environment, but they were most often referred to as poor white trash. As I say, status was very, very important. Then as far as the professors and how they would handle situations, I did encounter, one example in which a professor told what would be called a so-called black joke. He was reportedly, I don't know if he was, what his full heritage was, but he had apparently spent some time in South Africa. He had the typical, white settler accent, and he made a comment, and this was in about a small class of about like 50 people, and somebody asked a question. It happened to be a political geography class, as a matter of fact. Somebody asked a question about had it ever snowed in Africa. I think there were 3 of us blacks in the class at that time, and he said, I think it snowed once. He said something in South Africa. He said, I guess the natives must have thought the white man was coming apart. And everybody burst out laughing and thought that was funny. And the other 2 blacks in the class, after we talked, of course we didn't laugh, 2 of them, they said, well, I think we need to just get out of this class. And I said, I'm not getting out. We're going to experience this, And so we just decided to make a report of it, but, not to drop the class. As I say, it can be a challenge. It was a challenge depending on how you felt about yourself as a person of color. And I didn't go there with low self-esteem. Like I said, I kind of went there kind of mad and pissed like everybody else after all the, what happened in the, 60s and stuff. And but I was mindful, just like as one person was saying, I was there on scholarship, and I was mindful that I didn't have the money that they had, and I could be booted out. But nevertheless, as I did, was determined to succeed. It could be uncomfortable when you take a lab class, for example. I remember chemistry lab class, and you're supposed to have a partner. And, of course, naturally, nobody chose me to be their partner, but I continued, just started doing what I was supposed to do regardless. And the professor happened to be a Japanese professor at the time. He said, oh, no, you're not going to work by yourself. And he assigned somebody to me. This is a white male. And, you go through those experiences. Of course, nobody wants to be the only one with the black person. And but I think, as I say, you have to have a strong constitution to be able to get through that, and not to run away. And it's very difficult if you're not prepared, academically. I do remember in one class there was a black male. There was just the 2 of us. Frankly, it was a history class. I was, naturally the situation of Abraham Lincoln and slavery came up. I think this is one of the only situations I can think of in which, aside from the so-called joke being told, on which racial issues came up. I didn't make a habit, nor to my knowledge did any of us make a habit of trying to have racial conversations in our classes and our courses. We pretty much kept separate and had separate activities. But this black male, even though, like I said, this was years ago, I still, of course, remember this, he decided to challenge the professor about Abraham Lincoln and the so-called freedom of the slaves crap. And I was kind of surprised that, we're getting this at the university level, this lie. So he said very respectfully, to the professor, sir, with all due respect, I think it was only superficially that Abraham Lincoln wanted to free the slaves. I still remember all this dialogue to this day. And this professor, he happened to be, sometimes you have what the universities in New England, they have a colloquium. They share professors from, Harvard and BU and Northwestern, all the universities in the Boston area. Sometimes they share professors, and this happened to be, I don't know if I dare say Dr. Sherrick's name. He's probably dead now. But anyway, he just jumped all over this brother, and I was just sitting there thinking, I can't let him do this, but if I say something, what's going to happen? Just like he said, what about my grade? What about this and what about that? But And I was just hoping that this brother could handle it on his own. I was hoping he could handle the conversation without letting the professor get the best of him. He was so rude to him. I remember him shouting at him and saying, superficially, if you please, sir. And he just, that's all I remember hearing, and I thought my head would explode when I saw him attack him like that. And I said to myself, well, you're in this fight whether you like it or not. So I jumped in, and so we double teamed him. He was only two of us blacks, and in his history class, and maybe like 20 other whites. And it got so I don't remember what transpired, because sometimes when you're angry and you're saying things, I don't remember all the dialogue. I do remember him asking me to leave the class, and I told him I was not going to leave. And the rest of the students just kind of sat there, and we just all kind of looked. So it was interesting, because they rotated professors through this course. But that was the only direct type of confrontational situation in regard to a professor that I had. Like I said, I realize, and I think as you will realize if you were still connected with the community at large and other means of scholarship, that a lot of what you get at the universities, is company program, the history you get, even the science that you get, and the math is, as you say, all of this is part of, racism, white supremacy. It all serves that purpose. There's no such thing as, as they call value-free education, and they push this objectivity stuff, and sometimes personally, I felt when I got out, I graduated. I had to re-educate myself. I'm taking social sciences and I'm taking histories, and I had never heard of, Amos Wilson. Had never studied, John Henry Clark. None of these people, of course, the black scholars, the texts or whatever. I think I only had one black professor, I'm pretty sure one black professor, and that was a religion course. Of course, I didn't learn anything about religion. And so I had to educate myself, and once I got out, it was just, I'm thinking, and the interesting thing is when I would talk to, other blacks, even like people in my family, everybody thought I was getting this excellent education, and when I would, start studying and reading other books, I started reading Fanon. Well, of course, we did have black, we were reading, as blacks, reading alternative literature. I was reading Fanon at the time. And once I think for me, once I read Frantz Fanon, and that was it for me. That was like, I'm out, in terms of understanding what was really going on. And so I tried to read everything else that I could, and I remember I was trying to think of another incident. There was another history class, and history just really sucked. It was full of lies. Do you remember the Professor Hugh? I think he's a well-known scholar, deceased now. Hugh Trevor Roper, one of the books we were assigned to read, made it on the back of the book. When I first picked up the textbook, this was a signed textbook, and it was like, we don't need to. It was just really downing African civilization, and it was just okay. So I'm at a university, and we're supposed to be getting, this great education, and I'm getting all these, this hate about other cultures, et cetera, So that was very interesting. As far as confrontation with classmates as such, I think, there was a lot of airs of superiority because of the class issue. And I might say at that time I had no understanding of what a Jew is or wasn't, what that meant. But I found that a lot of the students that were Jewish, quote unquote, were always frequently telling me, I'm Jewish. And I'm thinking like, and what is that supposed to mean? As if, they were like a separate class of people. That was the time when I did come to realize, that there was something significant about, this so-called Jewish issue. And I had no idea at the time the extent to which quote unquote Jews were involved in academia, but it seemed like everywhere I looked, this was this Jewish issue, or a lot of the scholars and professors were indicating that they're Jewish. I remember I had an advisor as well. That lasted one meeting. I didn't choose advisor. This person was assigned to me, and took me out to lunch, and made the mistake of telling me at our first meeting that, of course, he was white, by the way, white male, and he said, I never brought up the issue of race. I mean, like I said, it was something that I had learned earlier on not to do. I was there to get, quote unquote, education. I wasn't trying to socialize or try to be accepted or none of that, But early on, as we, sat down to eat, he just, I guess, decided he was going to address the race issue, as it were, head on. And he said, I don't see color. And I just couldn't take it. I think I lasted about 2 or 3 minutes with him, and I just told him, I said, well, I don't understand how you cannot see color. You're looking at me. That was our first and last meeting. So I wasn't how should I say, attempting to be confrontational, but I wasn't backing up, and allowing myself to be insulted either. So it was, quite a learning experience. I think as some people have said to me, I got a degree in white people. Quite a training.
Did for anyone on the call, did sexual intercourse with white people, did that become an issue at the collegiate level? And I guess I'm asking because it's been my experience that a lot of that goes on at the college level, and that tends to be a huge part of the whole non-white experience at college under white supremacy. Does anyone on the line have any thoughts around that? And anyone, if you called in and you want to comment, press 1 and I can get you on the line. But any thoughts on that issue?
Well, can I be heard?
Yes, ma'am.
When I lived on campus at the time, I was in a small dorm, which is like equivalent to a mansion. It was like a mansion, and I think there were 3 of us blacks in there, and I think maybe no more than like 30 people there, so the rest would have been white. But of course, naturally, we as black females, we had dates, and our dates would come to the door. And, of course, they would sit in the, living room area, wait until we came, downstairs and meet them and greet them. Without fail, if a black guy came to the door, he would sit downstairs. All of a sudden, all the white girls were downstairs. And they were just all over it. I mean, and what really incensed a lot of us, unfortunately, I'm not here, to denigrate or badmouth the brothers or whatever, but it seemed like the attention just really got to them. And it happened every time. It happened so much so that we would just make sure that we would have to just answer the door so we wouldn't have to go down there, because by the time you met your date or your company, there'd be 10 white girls down there. All of a sudden they had something to do downstairs. And there were a couple, at least 1 or 2 that were dating black males. And, of course, white girls do share. So one guy was kind of like, being kind of like passed around. I do remember that.
I dated a white person before, and the only thing I can say about that is that I noticed that he would always tell me how his other friends would ask him what is it like dating a black woman, and what is the sex like?
Was that your first time dating a white male? Or I don't really use that term here.
Yeah.
Were you all engaged in sexual intercourse?
No.
Okay.
No. I told him that I believe in getting married first. I don't believe in sex before marriage, and he got very angry about that. So.
Wow. What did he say when he was angry?
Saying that that's not right, and he didn't like it at all. And I just flat out told him I'm not having sex with you until I see a ring.
Wow. The other two people that called in. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
And too, I had an experience in a dorm room with white females touching my hair and saying things about my hips and my behind and stuff like that. I remember that too while staying in the dorms. That was my, first experience, saying stuff about how shapely my butt and hips were and feeling my hair and telling them you better get off me. So.
It's interesting. I'm trying to recall some of my first my revelations about whites that I did not know, prior to having that experience. Now, I had gone to schools that had whites, so I was not, totally new to being around whites. I never went to segregated schools. But I never dated whites, never involved in any kind of sexual activity with whites, male or female. I guess I have to say male and female now. But I was never attracted to white males. But one thing, the first thing, I was never in an intimate situation in terms of, living with whites until I was living in the dorm. Now, that was my first indication of there's something, these people are bisexual. I mean, I noticed the way that the white girls interacted with each other. I mean, they were always walking around half nude in front of each other, sometimes nude, and that was something that black women didn't do. I don't know what we're doing there, pretty much everything. One person would go into the bathroom and, actually be using the commode or whatever, and then somebody would still come in. And I remember if I was in the bathroom or taking my shower, sometimes somebody would say, "Oh, can I come in? I want to use the bathroom." I'm like, "No, you cannot. You wait. I mean, we don't do that. And I noticed them complimenting each other a lot. I mean, there was one, they had little names for each other, like this one is sexy. I mean, I'm like, there's something strange about the way they interact with each other. I mean, like I say, if they were lesbians, the way the girls were acting, towards one another. Now, they did date as well. And the other thing was, their sexual mores. I mean, I had an independent, room. I didn't have a roommate, but there were those that did have roommates, and that's where you have dorm meetings and stuff like that. And there would be complaints about, like, well, I wish she would stop bringing her boyfriend and having sex in front of my face and stuff like that, And it was these things about whites that I got exposed to at that time in terms of their behavior,
We had, I just try to be observant, make an effort to be curious and observant. If you are a non-white person, victim of white supremacy, that will serve you well in college and in life. Make an effort to be observant. My observation The number of individuals on the line interested in speaking doubled when the conversation switched to sexual intercourse and racism. Hands just went flying. So the number of callers has now doubled on the line. So all of the new people who wanted to comment, sexual intercourse with white people at the collegiate level, do you all have something to share on that subject?
Yeah. I do. I've been on the line anyway, but that just brought back memories when they brought that subject up. But my first introduction, my first introduction to a lot of sexual confusion and basically what the irritated genie calls the white sex assault was my first year in college. A lot of anti-sexual behavior. That was my first introduction to effeminate black males who wore makeup. There was a non-white, I think he was a Hispanic male from Texas. It was entertaining to watch, but it was still quite strange to watch somebody put their fingers through a big batch of beans in the grocery store and say it made him feel so masculine. It's just weird. But I saw sexual intercourse between Asian females and white men. I remember having a roommate. She had a white boyfriend, and they would sit out in the hall for hours. It was really weird. They were into like some, I don't know, death metal, weird rock stuff. Eventually she moved out, and I ended up being able to have the room to myself. But there was another Asian female that wanted to talk to me once because she was really uneasy. She was dating a white guy, and he was pressuring her to have anal sex and asking me, should she do that? Of course, my answer was, hell no. But I remember seeing a lot of things like that. And then I had one teacher for an art theory class who was a so-called gay male. And I remember we were watching some slideshow, and I don't remember particularly what the subject was that day, but it was just kind of offensive to me, and it made me really uneasy that while we were watching a slideshow, he was putting on about some trip he took to the mountains. He was telling us that he and his lover had gone out to the mountains and they were frolicking around naked for days. I couldn't figure out what that had to do with art theory. It was just odd. It was off-putting. But my first exposure to things like that was most definitely in college.
The other two people that just got on the line with a hand up, did you all have something that you wanted to add on that subject?
Yeah, can I be heard?
Oh, can I be heard?
Yes, I heard both of you. I'll go females first.
How nice. Okay. I'm in college currently, out in Colorado, so give or take with that one. But I thought I would comment. I'm non-white, and my university is primarily Caucasian and white. But as far as the black males go, they get a lot of attention, both from our people and the white women, Hispanic women, all of it. Specifically the football team. I have good friends, good non-white friends on the football team, and they sleep with those white girls all the time. So as far as that goes, that's still happening. As far as being a black woman at this university, most of the attention that I get is from white males, and that's something new and surprising to me. I haven't really been hit on too much by anyone of color, be it black, Latino, Asian, or anything, but I have all of these white guys that love me. So that's interesting, and that's what I've noticed. I also live in the dormitory on campus, so I'm pretty well incorporated, and to get to see it is really interesting. After I had the first white guy hit on me, my roommate moved out and decided that I was a princess, and she didn't talk to me anymore. And the girl that lived across the hall from me, they formed some type of alliance. And from there on out, they started saying all kinds of snotty things. And, the use of the N-word is another thing that should be brought up. Be it hip-hop or whatever you want to put it on, I'm going to blame the industry and how these people go out and they're inspired to make all this money, and they're selling music that puts down their people and their race in general. But that's a whole other subject. But they use it freely. My sweet mate actually threatened to have her quote-unquote niggas come beat me up and stomp my face in. And that was coming from a little white girl. So I don't know how, if you have any commentary on that, I'd love to hear it.
The white men, when they try to talk to you, can you share more about how those episodes go down? Like, what do they say to you? I'm curious about that.
Usually it's "you're so pretty." They like to look at my hair, my features. There was a caller on the line that commented about a more curvy figure, and that is something that black women have that these white girls don't, and they pay big money to get. So for them to see it, on something naturally, that's how I'm made. That's how the Creator made me. That's a big thing for them. They like that. Usually it's just a hello. They're very touchy-feely is the other thing. Interesting. Does that answer some of your question? Or?
Have you engaged in sexual intercourse with any of these white guys?
No. I was talking to a really great guy about it, and he gave me the quote that was said in that movie Monsters Ball: "A man isn't a man until he splits dark oak," or something to that nature. And I thought about it. It was a really interesting quote. And if you really think about the black woman as being Mother Earth and being so abundant and full and, vivacious and everything that it means to be black in a woman, all in one. And you think about these white men that, they need that power. If there's something that comes in taming that power from sleeping with a black woman, it was deep, and it made me know I couldn't do it after hearing that. I also talked about it with some other black women, my colleagues, my friends, and told them, and it was really interesting to see them, make that revelation and say, oh my God, that does make sense. That's really deep, and I can say that I've changed a lot of their minds, but at the same time there are women of color that will agree with that same quote and be like, but that white boy, he can have it. So even knowing information, it doesn't change it for them, but for me, I know.
If we could keep the background noise down, that would be very helpful. If you're on the line and you're not speaking, if you could use your mute button, that would be very helpful. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. The caller in Colorado, have you seen the so-called homosexual, anti-sexual behavior? Have you seen that as well?
With the women, yes, absolutely. The girls are absolutely. My dorm is pretty large. It's, I want to say at least 500 kids in there. And it's really diverse for being in Colorado, and it's in Greeley, Colorado. If you know anything about Greeley, it's quite racist. It's awful. But for being in Greeley, it's kind of nice, I guess. In the dorm, though, those girls leave their doors open, and they're, completely stripping down. They don't care who walks by. And you share a room with your same gender, so their roommate will be in there, their suite mates will be in there. And it's almost like the caller had mentioned before, they're super touchy-feely, super complimenting. They do all that stuff together. She mentioned how they go to the bathroom while one's in the shower. That's still true. And I went to a private school out here, which was nothing but Jewish white people, and it was the same thing. So I'm kind of used to it, but yes, that's still absolutely, they're very touchy-feely with one another. They don't have those boundaries that I was raised with and came to know as normal.
Very interesting. The gentleman that was sharing, did you want to share your thoughts on this topic, the sexual intercourse with white people at the college level?
Oh, sorry, I was muted, Gus. Hey, good evening. Yeah, I just wanted to add that I think it was Miss Ebony Newchan who said it. I think degenerate sexual behavior is more regulated in college than it was in high school. Yeah, that's all I would add.
Interesting.
Well,
wow, go ahead.
I went to art school, so I think that had a big part too in why it was so much more in the open there. Even from some of the faculty. So, yeah, I think in art school people feel a bit more free, but it could be just as much like that everywhere else. I don't know.
Yeah, the sex with the white people is just rampant. I've seen that. Every university I've been to, same pattern. The athletes, black male athletes, have a field day. I think there's a lot of opportunities, even if you're not an athlete, particularly if you're in an environment like on the West Coast. I think that's especially the case. West Coast, Midwest, maybe a little less on the East Coast, but not a whole lot. Yeah, it can cause a lot of confusion. The Asian females, white males, tons of that. Like, man, I think that's even worse on the West Coast. Yeah, it's a lot of confusion. Man, that homosexual thing as well. And I've seen that not only the way you all have been talking about it, but in the classrooms. It's been my experience that they really push the homosexual, they really push so-called homosexuality when they bring up racism. It's like once the discussion switches to racism, now it's time to talk about gay people. Like, have you all seen that pattern?
Yeah, I noticed that. And I noticed how a lot of so-called homosexuals, they like to be around a lot of black people a lot, around a lot of black organizations. I'm starting to see that a lot.
If I could add to that, I will agree. Colorado, calling in again. But definitely as far as homosexuality goes, I see a lot of gay people that hang out with my group of friends that are black or some type of, what is classified as a minority here in the United States. And I think they're more open and more accepting, in my experiences, than even with their white counterparts. I have a best friend since 5th grade. I'm a freshman in college right now. Good friend of mine since 5th grade that's white, and he tells me more stuff than he tells his family, which is really interesting to kind of be a part of and treat, just to learn from that.
What does he tell you?
I was the first person that he told when he realized he was homosexual. As far as dealing with that all comes to me. Any type of gossip, someone talked about their teacher, and how that was completely irrelevant to class. I agree. I get stuff like that just in text messages and phone calls. It's interesting, for sure. It's very interesting to see.
Has anyone, I don't know, does it seem that when homosexuality is being discussed in the classroom, does it seem like an environment that it would be cool if you said, I don't think this is correct behavior, I don't think this is appropriate at all? Like, does it seem like the type of environment where you could take that stance and it would be okay?
No. I'm sorry. I actually took a class. It was a sociology class. It was deviant, and it was taught by a lesbian white female. So I mean, I don't even know what to make of that.
I have an economics class right now taught by a white lesbian female, and I guess she's in the process of almost transitioning, as they would say, so she's really masculine, a lot of masculine tendencies.
One thing I noticed is when the subject of homosexuality comes up, I noticed that people have a tendency to say you shouldn't question the behavior of like a person who's transgender. I'm noticing that it's like you can't question why they do what they do, and I've been told that not to question anything. Like say for instance, like say if a person says he is heterosexual, but at the same time likes to have sexual intercourse with males, but the person says that he's heterosexual, you're not allowed to question why he says that he is heterosexual. And I noticed that kind of behavior, saying that you can't question things.
The person that says they're still heterosexual is the one that tells you can't question them?
Right. Because I guess I was in a class about dealing with the issue of homosexuality, and a gay person presented it, and he was just saying, you know, if a person is female, but she likes to refer to herself as a he, you don't question that. Just accept that's what they want to be. You don't question. Well, why is this person calling herself a he when she's a she? He was saying you don't question that, and I thought that was strange. Well, you know, why is it? You know. So and that's what I noticed.
Yeah, I'm in the film and video program, and last semester, my professor, the class was called Critical Approaches to Independent Cinema, the independent documentary. And one film that my professor showed to the class was called Tongues Untied, and it was a film that focused on so-called black male homosexuality, and I was trying to figure out why my professor decided to show this particular film to the class. There was no other film that he showed that showed constructive images of black males and black females working together. There should be a program on that film, Tongues Untied. I mean, it really irritated me why he showed this film to the class.
Since his name was brought up, Irritated Genie, Homeland Security employee. Thank you for the reminder. Unless you all had something else to share on the homosexuality thing, I'm not changing the topic. It's just one of the listeners who requested this program in the letter. This is something she shared, part of her experience. I just wanted to read it and kind of get you all's thoughts. She said, she's talking about the homosexuality thing. Especially in one class, the teacher specifically told us to divide ourselves into opposing teams. One who thought that homosexuality is something a person is born with and it is normal, and another team of people who believe that homosexuality is caused by the environment and is abnormal and not natural, and told us to write our arguments on the board. I did not really want to participate because I knew that I would be attacked by the others, including the instructor, because since the start of the course, she had heavily promoted homosexuality, bisexuality, cross-dressing, sex change operations, interracial sex, sharing with us that she had dated a black man with long dreadlocks who could not get a cab because he was black, and how she had to have him hide while she waved down a cab, and how this is one of the things that white people have to deal with when dating non-white people. Excuse me. We were forced to write down something on the board, so I wrote down a couple of things. I was supposed to give the marker to the others to write down their positions. Only a few other people wrote down what they thought, and the pro-homosexual side had so many things written down on their side that I wanted to write down more because everyone else on my side did not want to write down anything and could not think of anything else to write down. I went to write more stuff down, and the teacher got angry and told me I had already wrote stuff down, but she allowed me to write down more since she could see no one else was going to write anything else down. She started the debate discussion by reading what was written on both sides, agreeing with everything that promoted homosexuality. And when it came to our side, she read what my team had written down, reading some of my arguments out loud, disagreeing and saying how silly my arguments and the others on the team's arguments were, and how they made no sense and we were wrong. When she asked me to support what I had written down, one of the white females in the class whispered how what I was saying was very homophobic, and the other white females were visibly angry, kind of glaring at our team. So I just stopped talking. I do not know how to handle this at all. I will just stop talking when I feel that other students and teachers are upset at what I have said. And in the future, I remember not to share research, facts, evidence, opinions, or comments that I feel will get them upset. I'll stop there. Do you all have any thoughts on what she shared, and what would you all do if you were in this situation? How would you handle this?
I'd like to comment on that.
Go right ahead.
Oh my gosh, honey, please do not stop speaking your mind. I hope that if anything you gather, don't ever stop speaking your mind, because it's so important to voice your opinion, because no one else will if you don't. So that's first. Secondly, it's a classroom, and everyone's learning, and the learning that you're doing will come from both in and out of the classroom. And sometimes what you've learned out of the classroom will better benefit what you're learning in the classroom. So, as far as her opinion goes, she should have reported that teacher and everything that was happening, because that's just almost a conflict of interest with her teaching that class and asking for people to voice their opinions. As an instructor, you need to be ready for that. So everything was wrong with that, and I hope that whoever it is that has that issue takes it a step further and reports it and makes it known, because that's not what college is, and that's not learning at all.
Can I be heard?
Yes.
Okay, my position in regards to that, as I say, in the ideal world, one can voice one's opinions without repercussions. However, what you do when you're in college, what you do on your job, et cetera, especially today with all this technology, believe me, voicing your opinions, however valid, however correct, the opposition is quite powerful. It's interesting because I was talking to someone just the other day that's a teacher and finding themselves in a position of being in opposition to what the majority of her administrators and her staff believe and put forth, which contradicts, her experience, et cetera. And just as I recall Dr. Frances Cress Welsing saying to someone in one of her lectures, get your degree, keep some of your opinions to yourself, and, that doesn't mean that you become an unprincipled person. That means that you're conscious of the fact that you're living under white supremacy, racism, and that, as Neely Fuller says, the white man is the job god. Expressing your opinions, these things can follow you throughout your entire career. So I just think that you need very much to keep that in mind. I took a course just a couple of years ago on human sexuality, and I'm interested in how this professor that you talk about, that was just shared by the person who had that experience, how they, in many ways, apparently violate your anonymity. When I took a course in human sexuality, I took it at a predominantly black university. All the students in the class were black, half male, half female. Professor was black male, and I believe he was gay. He didn't share his sexual orientation, but things led us to believe that was his orientation. My point being, when we were asked to do exercises of that nature, they were done anonymously. They were put on a piece of paper, and we had one chairperson in each group represent the opinions, but neither the professor nor the opposite group knew who they were coming from. But getting back to, sharing your opinions, I think we should know that could be very dangerous, to professionally. I mean, it could be career suicide because don't think that course that you're taking and information that you give about yourself at the university is not shared. Because I know that generally they keep folders on the students, et cetera. You have advisors. I mean, there's ways of knowing what your background is. So I would just add that admonition, not that one should cowtail or not stand up or speak one's truth, but we do need to recognize the system under which, we're functioning.
Yes. I'm sorry. I just have a quick question. Would it be inaccurate to say that non-white people are more likely to engage in anti-sexual behavior once they enter a college atmosphere?
I suspect that could be true.
Yeah, I wasn't introduced to concepts such as undercover brothers and whatnot until I got in college, where non-white females who I was friends with would tell me, with basketball, homosexual. Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, they would tell me with basketball players were homosexual, and I would argue with them, that how, I just couldn't fathom it back then. But then it takes me back to one of my favorite movies, Revenge of the Nerds. Again, when you go to college, you're exposed to the Greek culture, and the only black male in college in the fraternity was a homosexual. I mean, I just made that.
Oh, that's right. White people love that movie. That's right. That's right. Need to watch that. That will be added to the film list. Revenge of the Nerds, because white people love that movie. Yeah, I did want to. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Please.
Oh, okay. Well, I just wanted to kind of reach on a broader topic, I guess, of speaking out and reaching out, which is something that I encouraged the person to do that brought this letter. Personally, in my dorm, I have 2 suite mates that are that are white, I'm so sorry. And they did some really, really nasty things, hygiene issues. We share a bathroom. We have 2 rooms that are connected, and we share a bathroom. And these girls would go and leave their feminine products from that time of the month in the toilet, and they wouldn't flush it. They would argue that they had even done it in the first place and blame it on me. And I talked to my hall director about it, which is the person that you're supposed to go to when you have problems like this, and she didn't handle it properly. So I spoke out against it, and I sent it to not her supervisor, but her supervisor's supervisor. So I would just encourage, I understand that we're living in this messed up world under this really ridiculous system, but I just am a firm believer that you need to be the change that you wish to see. And I'm not saying that it's even possible to change because we're so deep in this, but I'm going to stand up for it. And if it's something wrong, then I want to be known for the person that stands up for what was wrong. So just as far as that goes, I'm a broader and kind of more out there off subject, but
yeah, I definitely the female who shared that letter and requested the program. I definitely wouldn't tell you to ever feel like. That's an abomination to be in an academic environment, to be in a classroom, period, and to think that you have to, hide research or questions. That's just ridiculous. But I would say, I think in the same vein that Dr. Welsing has said before, that the classroom isn't always the place that you need to make a stand. And I guess if I was speaking specifically, I don't think the classroom is always the place to prove and demonstrate your understanding of racism, white supremacy. I don't think you have to lie per se, but I think you can get skills to navigate that environment. Just my personal story, very similar. I had a non-black person I knew. He was a TA in a class on Asian American history, and I attended the class, and they were taught the whole week, right? They had been talking about so-called interracial relationships and white people adopting Asian children and all that good stuff. And so I attended the discussion section that this non-white person that I knew that he was leading. And they're talking about interracial relationships, and people are sharing their stories and all this good stuff. The instructor for this class is a non-white female, so-called Asian female, married to a white person. And I asked, I said, do you all think it is significant that the person who is teaching a class on Asian American studies is married to a white person? Do you think, does that mean anything? And it started this big discussion, and I think half of the students in the class did not know she was married to a white person, and the other half did know. And it seemed like they were waiting, like, yeah, I'm glad somebody asked that question, because I had been thinking about that. And we talked about it for I didn't say anything else, but they talked about this for I won't say 20 minutes, but a good 10 minutes or so. And one of the first comments that was made was, I think she's a hypocrite. And the person explained in detail, like, she complains about white people and how white people are racist and they've done all these ugly things to non-white people, and then she's married to a white person. Like, I think, she's a total hypocrite. And other people shared similar stories, and it was just really interesting. Not everyone had that view, but, it was, I thought, a real interesting discussion that was mostly very respectful. I'd say very respectful. I don't think anyone was name-calling her or anything like that. It got back to the professor, and she was furious. The non-white person that I know, he got in trouble. Like, it just turned into a big episode. And it was just, it was a great lesson for me, I think, and for him as well. Just number one, that sex and racism is explosive. You got to be real careful the way you go about that. But the classroom, it can be very dangerous. People can get upset about things. Just asking a question can be a problem. Particularly just dealing with racism, white supremacy, it can be a real problem. So I would say, think in advance, this could go bad. If it does go bad, what could happen? I would say try to keep that in mind as well. But just the classroom, I would assert the classroom is not the place that you need to feel like this is my chance to get on my soapbox about racism, white supremacy. That's not necessarily an environment that you want to do that. The other people that called in, your lines are open as well. Oh, wow, it's a lot of people now. So the 4 people who called in with a hand up, your line's open, and I'll say again, please, let's keep the background noise down. If you know you're in a quiet place, no noise, no other audio is playing around you, no other people are talking or anything, that's fine. But if not, if you could mute your line, that would be very helpful. All of the people that called in, if you all have any commentary on what we've been discussing with the sex at the collegiate level.
Hello,
white people.
Hello?
Can I be heard?
Yeah, I would. Okay.
Yes,
Hello?
can hear everybody.
Okay.
Yeah, I would recommend for non-white people at the collegiate level at college, I would recommend that they one way that they can challenge their professors is by asking them to dissect many of the terms that they use. So if you have a professor that uses the term homosexuality, ask him or her to define what that means. If the professor uses the term white supremacy, ask him or her what that means. If you've seen the film Malcolm X, there's a scene where Denzel Washington, he challenges the priest by asking him certain questions. So I would do the same thing. Yeah, so do what you have to do in your classes, but, voice your opinion at the same time. Don't be afraid to voice your opinion. You can challenge your professors by asking them what certain terms mean from a counter-racist perspective.
Can I be heard?
Yes.
Hello?
We can hear you.
Okay. I am a non-white 5th grader. I'm not in college, but I feel that I should share some of the things that I am experiencing at this early age. And there's a lot of homosexuality at my school, and there's a lot of racism as well. And also there is there's a bunch of white females that like me, and so yeah. And about the racism, my teacher she will downgrade me and try to say that she'll be like, yes, if she, like, one day we were doing a social studies project, and I was in a group with 2 white females, and I asked them a question, and Miss Walker said that she was like, Zayanaja, that if you cannot use a globe, how will you be able to find out all the things that white people did to black people, and how they took them on slave ships and they tortured them and stuff, and that just really made me angry. And so, yes, that's really it.
Wow. 5th grader. Wow. Very impressive. You said there's also a lot of homosexuality going on at your school?
Yes. There is a white male at my school, and he will touch other non-white and white males in inappropriate places and do a lot of just not good things. And so, yeah. And it's not just him. There are a number of white males. And I think there might be some females, too, that
are these adults or children?
They are children. They are all children.
So there's white children touching other children in inappropriate ways at your school in the 5th grade?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you reported this to any of your teachers or the parents?
Yes. Yes, I have.
Have they done anything about it?
They have tried, but it doesn't stop. And the white male I was talking about earlier actually got into a fight with another Asian because he was touching him inappropriately.
Wow.
Wow.
I just wanted to welcome the 5th grader.
Thank you. Justice.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes.
Hey. Hello, everyone. This is Nanny, and I'd like to add a different educational experience to this conversation. May I?
Yes.
Well, during the mid-1970s and mid-80s, I was enrolled in an electrician's apprenticeship program. And the federal government had mandated and set aside funds for non-whites to sign up for and be accepted into the trade union apprenticeship program. And I was accepted into the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, the IBEW apprenticeship program in a southern state. I had to attend classes at night that addressed electrical theory, and I went to the union hall to get a job during the day, which it was on-the-job training. My books and transportation to the job and school and my tools were supposed to be paid for out of the funds that had been mandated. But a black man that was the overseer of the program, he did not tell me nor my mother, I was still a young person, about these funds. So my mother had to foot the bill for them, and obviously he spent the funds, stole them or whatever. But anyway, the union hall where I had to report daily to get a job, I can remember until this day. the evil stares and looks and all of the in the corner conversation that they thought I couldn't hear, and this was by white men. It was a terrible situation, but I managed to get through it, I guess, because of the will to learn and wanting to become a journeyman. Well, when I first arrived on jobs in the morning, you report to a trailer, which is a job site trailer where the electricians were. And the white male journeymen, they made a point to talk about their sexual escapades. Some would even ask me questions, can you hold pencils under your breast, all this kind of craziness. It was horrible. And because of the time frame, there weren't very many black journeymen or even a black male apprentice.
Huh?
So the couple of black journeymen that I knew, these are licensed folk, licensed electricians when I say journeymen, they were castrated and very silent. They couldn't come to my defense. But most of the white journeymen did not want to teach me, and they did not teach me. But fortunately and unfortunately, I did get an opportunity to work with a very knowledgeable man, and he taught me quite a bit. But that almost came with a price. And that price was that he wanted my husband and myself to participate in his weekend swingers club in the woods with other white folks. They wanted us to swing. And I thought that my story is different because it's not the college setting that most people think of, or learning institute. And black folk, non-whites, have been getting into the apprenticeship programs, but their stories are never told.
Wow.
Hello? That's what I was going to say. Dang. That's,
white people in the woods.
That's for Deliverance, right? That's crazy. That's another good film, Deliverance. Check that out. See white people at their best. Wow. I just want to make sure I'm hearing that correctly. Like the white person said, in order to give you information, you would have to engage in sexual intercourse with them at their swingers palace in the woods. Is that accurate?
Actually, no. He did not say that. What he did is he drew me in because I guess he identified something in me about learning, and I was always questioning him. So his teaching me was given to me over a period of time. And I guess, and he also, we had to drive around a lot because we worked at different commercial sites fixing things for them or installing appliances or what have you. So he would take me over to his house because most of these jobs were near where he lived. And I met the family, and they wanted me to stay for dinner, and I'm very picky about my food, so I would not eat. And then he'd take me back to the job site where I could get home. So he led me to it. When he thought that I was comfortable enough with he and his family, that's when he put it on the table. Swing with us.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was occasionally saying hello to see if I was on the line. I'm sorry to interrupt the woman's story there. I mean, if she would like to finish.
No, I'm done.
Okay. That was really interesting and incredible to hear. I'm 25 and I live in Georgia, and I graduated from college in 2007. And I guess I like to point out that in college it was a place, at least where I went, where you confirmed or you rejected a lot of ideas you had when you was an adolescent, living at home, going to high school, that type of bit. So when you when I recall first coming to college, I went through a period of really trying to confirm and build my own social identity and confirm some social norms that I thought were true or weren't true with a lot of people, a lot of my other peers. And so, you know, I will get questions, of course, from white people that, you know, are black people this way or, you know, are they that way? And, you know, vice versa, too. And it's kind of like a period where when you're young, you try to confirm and deny that a lot of expectations, or not expectations, but a lot of thoughts and things that you grew up with that maybe your family may have told you or that you heard about in high school, that you can now do in an environment that's away from home, that's closer to the adult world. And a lot of the stuff that you confirm, you end up believing or not believing in college, through academia and through your peers, you know, kind of transitions and goes out into the real world, and then that becomes kind of a permanent part of you. And so, you know, I really like this discussion, and because I think it's important that people can get misconceptions and certain stereotypes in their mind about African Americans and about Caucasians, Asians, you know, Hispanics, whatever it may be, and that can be seeded and permanently put into their brain. And when they go out into the real world, you know, that's what they're going to believe. And, you know, so that's my 2 cents.
Wanted to make sure I got in as well. I think this is applicable for any age group. So hopefully the young man, the 5th grader on the line, hopefully this will be applicable to you as well. Generally, schools, colleges, these tend to be places with a lot of resources. White people generally, it's just all kinds of stuff there. Sometimes the resource is people who know things, who have access to information. Other time it's actual written documents and what have you, but they tend to be places with a lot of resources, especially colleges and universities. Try to utilize as many of those resources as you possibly can. If you're at a college, university, go to the Student Resource Center. Like they have scholarship information, study abroad programs. I found a lot of times non-white people, white people haven't let us go to school very much, so we kind of just get thrown to the wolves with all of that. And I mean, I think a lot of us, we could do a lot better in that environment if we had kind of someone to show us, you know, all of the things that are available to you as a student. I think if more of us knew about study abroad programs, I think more of us would try to get out, go someplace else, do some studying, pick up another language, see how white supremacy operates, you know, on a different continent. Just try to take advantage of as many resources as possible. Man, you can do a lot. That would be number one. I'll try and think of some other suggestions that I would have for doing well in an academic setting. So use the library. I'd say that is one skill, man, I cannot overstate. Learn how to use the library well. That is a skill. It will serve you well for a lifetime. Almost anything that you want to learn about, most likely there is a book or some sort of writing material on it. If you can learn how to use a library well, man, you will be good to go. You'll be good to go with a lot of things. Learn how to use the library well.
Okay.
Can I still be heard?
Oh.
Yes, sir.
Yes, and I was just thinking about an experience that I think that I personally had in the college environment. Before I ever got to college, just kind of reflecting back on, you know, how ideas start young and then, you know, they transform in your kind of college years and then they become a part of you when you're older, is that when I was younger, I wasn't really acclimated or part of African American culture. I was kind of ostracized from that, and And you know how kids are, and that's just what happens in dynamics of going in middle school and I'm in high school and all that type of stuff. So a lot of my friends were actually Caucasians at that time. And when I transitioned over and went to college, I found out that I had a harder time identifying with African American social nuances of in that time period. And so, I had my own type of stereotypes that I came to the table with. And as a consequence, earlier in my college career, I found it a lot easier to identify with Caucasians and actually have more white friends than I had black friends. And that wasn't like a conscious decision I made, as in more of that's just kind of how the cards played out when I got to that institution. And when I actually started to, approach, that type of the type of culture at that time, of course, in African American culture. When I started to, approach, my fellow brothers, sisters, and all of them, when I started to approach them, I found out that, there was this kind of gap that kind of was created back in my public school years, and that had to be bridged now in my college years. And the way I presented myself was different from the way they presented themselves to me. And so I was stereotyped as somebody kind of this kind of the stereotypical term of the Oreo, the dude that's hanging out with all the white folks and yada yada yada. And so for the first half of my college career, going back to the whole especially the whole sex thing and men and women interactions, I dated more white women than I dated black women. And for a long time, actually not to the very end of my college career, that I actually tried to approach my dating life and in that direction, just mainly because of what I believed back in my public school years was kind of confirmed in my college years, that I wasn't somehow connected to a certain African American culture and element because I hadn't experienced it. And not until really late in my college career I was able to actually go ahead and really evaluate how I was thinking and actually kind of accept myself to be a woman of all different types of ethnicities and whatnot. And at the moment, of course, I dated an African American woman, but for a long time, it just I think it's really important. Certain type of thinking starts early, and in the college years, you're supposed to go to the library, like you said. Your professors are supposed to kind of make some dynamic headway in racial normatives in America, and I don't think that happens a lot. So people kind of grow up and have these skewed perspectives, and that gets embedded into their life. And so it's a very important time period.
Well, going back to what you said about how you are supposed to use the library, at my school we have a very large library, and it is run by what I feel is a Caucasian racist white supremacist, and she will yell at the black students, and we will have less resources. But I do try to use the library as much as I can so that I can gain as much knowledge as I can. And so, yeah. It is really a great resource.
Did you say you said the library, the person who's in charge at the library is a white woman?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. I have experienced that often in my life, being fussed at in the library by a white woman. My entire life, I feel like that's my whole life, fussed at by white women in the library.
I just wanted to ask the fifth grader, if that's okay. Have you listened to other cows?
Yes, I have, and I really enjoy the show.
I would like to address fear, and I'd like to address it actually to the fifth grader, but I want to tell you a little story first. I went to school in a small town in Massachusetts, southwest of Boston, approximately 40 miles. And in 1974, the Boston school system had to integrate. So, of course, the white folk in the area did not want it, and it created the Boston riots. Now, I told you that I was 40 miles northwest of Boston, but I can remember the fear of busload of white folk, and I lived in a very white town and Jewish. I was so fearful, and I wasn't a young child, of these people coming in and killing the black folk, and it was just a handful of us at the school. So the reason why I brought that story up, because I want to know if the fifth grader is fearful of the homosexuality that he or she, I don't know if you're a boy or a girl, that you've experienced in your school. Are you fearful?
Well, to answer your question, I am a male. Yes, very much, because I'm worried about if something happens and something goes down, if I will be blamed for something that one or maybe more than one homosexual has started. So yes.
So the adults on the line, what do we say to him? How do we help him?
Well, my mom taught me to be pretty defensive if anyone tried to touch me in any kind of way or put their hands on me, and she made me feel confident that I could tell her if someone was doing something to me, whether it was touching me, mistreated me. I mean, it started from, if you have to go to the bathroom and your teacher says no, you don't hold it, you go, because you don't destroy your organs over some teacher. So she, little things like that, she started me out with the confidence to do what needed to be done, even if other people, like teachers, would say, no, you can't, don't do this. So it made me feel like I had the support of another adult outside of school if something happened and I was having a problem. I think that will help with fear if children know that somebody will have their backs and support them and believe them if they're telling you, I'm being mistreated, something's incorrect. I think that's big.
Yes. My mother is very loving, and I feel that I can trust her no matter what it is. And so, yes, thank you very much.
Welcome.
Well, I'm glad that you, the fifth grader here, you're actually speaking with your parents openly about this. You have that communication, because I think it's kind of sad in our world today that we don't pay enough attention, I think, to our children and what they experience in their school environment and how that affects them. And a lot of time we just kind of, I guess, brush it off as something that is not really affecting them, or something that is not really damaging, but potentially it could be. And I think the first step is really just saying that it's great that you can talk with your parents and your mother about that. And I think we need to encourage, I guess, adults to pay attention more, I guess.
I have a question. Do you have children?
Me?
Yes.
Actually, no, I do not have children.
Okay.
But I do have a younger brother who's actually 13, and we spend, I spend a lot of time trying to be a good role model for him, and
okay.
You know what? I think if you prepare the children with information before they go, they will feel less fear because I think a lot of fear comes from confusion as well. And I think the more you know, the less confused you are. So if they know that they'll be dealing with racist suspects and that they will be assaulted with certain things, you can better arm them with, tools to deal with it, maybe counter responses or, just tactics that they can practice.
The fifth grader on the line, if you don't want to share your name, you don't have to. I just wanted to, what you would like to be called. What would you like us to call you?
I'm comfortable with fifth grader.
Okay. No worries.
Well, that's me, Nanny, talking. I don't mind calling him fifth grader.
If you're cool with fifth grader, I am cool with fifth grader. I was just throwing it out there. If you would prefer to stick with fifth grader, that's no problem.
Yes, that'll be fine.
Okay,
I'll let you know if I do think of anything, though.
Okie dokie. That is a deal.
Well, fifth grader.
Oh, hang on. I had a question. Hang on a second. Thank you. My question, because I think this really gets to how you deal with fear. Did your parents or anybody in your family, did they tell you, now when you go to school, you're going to be seeing, a lot of this homosexuality, and some of the white girls and boys might be trying to talk to you or touch you or talking about dating and stuff. Did anyone tell you that was going to be waiting for you at school?
Yes. Actually, my father, he is very adviseful, and I feel that he is a person that is very wise. And so, yes, so my father does address that kind of thing to me before I go to school.
Okay. That's great. What did he tell you to do when the white girls try to talk to you?
Well, there's a lot of different things, but one of my favorite things that he tells me, and the one that I feel that I can most do, is probably when he tells me to get a teacher if there's anything that I feel I am uncomfortable or like that hurts, like if they hit me or something. So to tell a teacher.
That's great. That's great. Just with the homosexuality, I am trying to be a man. The homosexuality is way incorrect, and that's something we don't want to be involved in at all. When I say we, I mean non-white people, black people. That's just my opinion, but I think we should be trying to be men, and being a man has nothing to do with homosexuality.
Yes.
The female that had I'm sorry. Did you want to say something?
Oh, no. I agree.
Well, reflecting back upon the letter that you actually have there, that you read earlier, I definitely remember several times in the university setting, certain people would voice their opinions on the homosexual matter or what they believe about African Americans or Caucasians or whatever, and then the classroom environment would go kind of stale, kind of cold a bit. Like people did not want to address that in the classroom area, and I can understand, like, if we're talking about a class where we're dealing with biology or something that is way off topic, but in your interpersonal communication types environment in classes like that, we would touch on that type of subject, and it seems like people are just going to let the trips fall where they may when it comes to, I guess, homosexual behavior and certain stereotypes for African Americans.
Yes. It really is. It is a trip. How it's kind of just like starts so early.
Fifth grader,
female.
how do you want adults, this is Nanny, Mr. Gus, how do you want adults to help you or assist in getting rid of the behavior that you've described in your school? What should we do?
Well, so far you guys are really just doing great, giving lots of great advice. So just keep doing what you're doing, I guess, yeah.
Do you suggest that we spend a lot of time at schools because of what you described?
If you can, yes. I mean, I don't want to interfere with any personal business or anything, but if you can and if you would like to, yes, that would be great.
Do you think that if more adults, black adults or non-white adults, show up at schools, would this make the children, such as yourself, much more comfortable with the homosexuality that's going on and maybe the racism?
Yes, especially the racism, because my school's got it bad. Like, there was a time when my best friend, also a non-white male, was in my class. He started out in my class. And my afternoon teacher, there is a GT writing class, and there are lots of people in the GT writing class that have not had that are in it and have not had to switch classes, but she switched my best friend out of my class, and she didn't do that with anyone else that I know of. And that really I feel she did it to separate us.
When I was in university, I was a math wizard. And the math department, there was the head of the math department and his assistant. Well, the assistant was just amazed, like I was a rarity or some unique creature that was created somewhere else other than Earth. But this individual attempted to make me feel like if you wanted to be a part of the math department, if you wanted to excel in math or whatever, something moving forward, I had to service him in a way. I had to go out and become a white person, start to mingle and socialize with the math community, which were white people. And I had to leave my blackness at the door. And that really, it was just devastating. I knew how to get over it. I did get over it. But I just felt that in order to excel, we always, black folks, non-white folks, have to bend over backwards. And it's just disgusting.
Well,
I agree 100% with the lady there with that I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
Oh, no, you can finish.
I really agree with that. In the university setting, I was, well, you know, I'm in the English field and I do professional writing, but there is a unique, unspoken type of I don't want to say code, but there are certain cultural elements you have to leave at the door, and I think that African Americans are definitely put in a position where we would have to give up a lot more cultural identity to blend into that than many other ethnicities. And I know I experienced that firsthand. And I know going into the working world, your interviews and your jobs and whatnot, it's very, very important. Well, it's not really important, but very necessary for the African American male and female to present themselves a certain way, to integrate into the white culture in order to really accelerate their life and access certain opportunities that you wouldn't have otherwise. And I have some good, black friends of mine who don't want to conform to that standard. And the sad part about it is that it does affect their lives economically, and has real implications. I mean, acting white mess with an African American's ability to survive and make money for their family. And I just want to throw that I agree with the lady entirely on that.
I have a question. This is for anyone. Like when you need help to improve yourself, professionally, do you find that you have to depend upon white people to do that?
Yep.
Yeah.
It should be a chorus of yep.
Yep.
Unless I'm mistaken, it should be whole bunches of yep.
Yes.
And also, do you find that you're less able to help other non-white people too?
That is correct.
Economically.
Yes, and I think even sometimes with information, because non-white people tend to look at white people as the authorities on everything, so they tend not to trust information or coming from other non-white people and not to always respect what you're saying.
I agree.
Yep. Amen.
Said they need white validation.
Mhm. I'm starting to experience this. Because I started my own home-based business, and I'm finding that I have to depend on white people to get what I need. And every time I say I want to help non-white people through my family, oh no, you can't do that. Can't do that. You shouldn't know. Help everybody. You just can't just focus on non-white people.
Oh yes, I've heard that from other black people before. Like someone in particular, one of my friends asked me if I knew of any organizations that she could donate to because she wanted to sponsor a child. Now, in particular, at first she said an African child, and I mentioned Haiti to her. Her response was, no, I want to help all different kinds of children. I want to help an African child in Africa and some Asian children. But it seemed like she had a serious aversion to doing anything for a black child in Haiti, and I couldn't figure it out unless it was just the programming of, all the Feed the Children commercials. But it just didn't seem logical to me why you would reject helping a black child in this hemisphere who is going through something, as a result of such devastation. But we do tend to have a love the world, help everybody mental disease, and other people don't have it. I've never talked to a so-called Hispanic person and said, why don't you see if you can find any cultural centers and take your children there so they don't, go under the cultural attack in school from white people. I've never heard anybody say, oh, no, we should focus on everybody. I find most other non-white people have a great sense of cultural pride.
Yeah.
They don't try to detach themselves so much from it, but black people have it really, really bad. It's really bad.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me sad to encounter it, but it's really bad, and we wonder why we go through so much. And definitely white supremacy, racism is the underlying cause for it all. But I look at our behavior, and it seems like we are unwilling to come together. We reject anything that's all about us, and I think that stems from self-hatred.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I just wanted to thank Justice for what she does on the show. And yeah, because it's really helpful to me and probably a lot of others.
You're welcome.
I wanted to ask, because I think this is important, if the caller that's in Colorado, are you still on the line? Oh, she might have left. Did we lose the caller in Colorado? Okay. Is anybody out of the person that called at 5248, your line is open. Out of the people that are here, are any of you all, or if any of you have graduated, attend schools that are mostly white people?
Yes.
Okay.
It was half and half, at least mine.
Okay. Okay. Were you informed about white supremacy at the time you were there?
You know, I had one unique experience dealing with that. It's that I never forget. I was at this kind of a cafe area that was near our university that a lot of the people go to and do their work and whatnot. And this guy was coming down the street, and he had himself a bundle of newspapers, and he was going around and handing them to everybody. And I was sitting with a group of my friends. And at that time, I knew two Hispanic folks who were sitting with me, and and a couple other white people. But he handed a newspaper and skipped over the two Hispanic guys and us, and he gave it to the other white guy, and he kept going down the block. And I didn't know who he was. I mean, of course. And I was like, "Can I get one?" Kind of jokingly. And he didn't even, he just ignored me like I wasn't even there. But we looked at the paper, and it was, lo and behold, it was a white supremacist newspaper talking about several things about H.P. Lovecraft and how his scientists, even though he's a science fiction writer, proves that African Americans are descendants from some type of ape. It was crazy stuff. But it was about like how a student newspaper would be. It was like maybe 8 pages, but filled with articles and all this stuff on supporting white supremacy. And it was like just right there, and they were just handing it out to people, and you just go along, and I never saw it. Never happened again, but I'll never forget that. Hey, Gus, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm on the 5248 number out of Chicago. And I'm probably a little older than most of the people on the line, but I attended Loyola University. I graduated from Loyola University during the 80s. And this was the same time that Ronald Reagan first came into office. And the white mentality was very, very strong, yet the mentality of black people at that time was more of, because we've had this opportunity to get our children into college, to really not inform them of what they were really going to encounter in terms of racism. I mean, a lot of children, black children at that time, were coming out of the Catholic school system or the Christian school system, and they really didn't have an idea of what racism really was, because they were used to going to a school, a grammar school, or a high school that was primarily white, but they were really taught to really not focus on that fact and just to, kind of grin and bear with it. And I went to a seminary, and the racism was very, very outwardly shown at that school. So when I went to Loyola, I had an idea that racism was going to be somewhat there, but it was so strong in terms of, the example I want to give you is that they had an intramural basketball team, and naturally, we gravitated towards one another in terms of that sport. So when the brothers formed the team, when the games occurred, now they were superior in skill in terms of the other players, so they had to literally change the name of the team to to a name that would not let white people know that it was a black team, because they knew that if it was a black team, that basically they were going to win the whole conference or whatever. So what happened was they were overwhelming people to the point where the referees were very, very biased in their calls in the game. I mean, if you touch somebody white in the game, they would call a foul. But when the Caucasians would knock the brothers to the floor, literally, they would call nothing. They would call a charge or whatever, and they would always make it appear that the brother had done something. And to make it even more outwardly understood, one of the brothers that was actually on the team at Loyola was the coach for the intramural team. So whenever he would intercede on just crazy calls, they would just toss him out of the game. They would call a technical foul, or they would just immediately toss him. And, I mean, it was just ridiculous. So at that time, like I was saying, with Reagan coming in the office and them cutting a lot of the financial aid that was beginning to, or that had been coming to black people, within the last part of the 70s, black people really didn't know how to handle that. So that led later on to when they erased the whole financial aid program at most of the universities, then a lot of black people that had opportunities then lost the opportunity to even go to a lot of the the white universities that had a steep tuition. So this has been going on. I mean, from my vantage point, in terms of the 80s and the 90s, I've seen it happen, and they've eliminated. Like at Loyola, they don't even have a black studies curriculum anymore. I mean, and that whole black program was completely eliminated. So there was in my opinion, there was a plan of some type to basically take back everything that had to do with affirmative action has basically been eliminated. So wherever most of the people go, black people in terms of university, if it's going to be a white school or considered a white school, they're going to have to deal with that whole idea of white supremacy, and their parents or somebody that is in their life has to basically sit them down on a consistent basis and explain where we really came from and what really happened, beyond what's taught like in Roots. I mean, that's just a light type of explanation. They really have to be taught on a consistent basis, because it's not being even taught in most of the schools now. I mean, they show you 1 or 2 pages of white supremacy, and that's it. So a lot of the children, I didn't have any idea. I really didn't have much of an idea of what white supremacy was all about, because, like I said, I went to a seminary. Even though it was kind of I want to say rampant, but in terms of me actually facing that reality, it wasn't there, because most parents are telling their children to basically just deal with the issue at hand, which is the education, and to basically ignore everything else that's going on around you, and they don't really give them that type of foundation. So I just wanted to add that.
What you were saying about the basketball, how if they heard that it was that it was a black team, they would know that they were automatically going to win the series. I play basketball, and at my last game, my most recent game, there was a white referee, and it seems to me that almost all the penalty calls were seeming to be on the black people on my team, and I just felt that was an act of racism, white supremacy.
Yes, sir.
This is Nanny. I listen to a lot of talk radio around the country, and it's black folk talking. And I find that older black people say, all of that stuff is in the past. Why do we need to discuss it? And I thought about that when the man was addressing that black folk didn't prepare their children for the racism, and they still don't. The racism, white supremacy that they will face when they go to school, even if they're not going to school, it's going to be there. They're going to have to confront it. So what is this attitude that racism, white supremacy, and the hatred and the hangings and all that stuff, why do black folk believe, or non-white people for that matter, believe that it's in the past, that it's not going on now?
Can I comment on that? I think it's a defense mechanism. I think that just like in The Color Purple, when you had the situation where the character that Oprah Winfrey was playing, when she got into the confrontation in the street, her first instinct was to get her children away from the threat, the physical threat, as well as the mental threat. And the fact that the black male, being her husband at that time, was not even willing to physically put himself in front of her to protect her. And, I mean, I know it was a movie, but a lot of that has a lot of truth because that's what happens today. I work in the corporate world, and I've asked a black female on the job before. I said, if someone white were to, one of the people in authority was to strike you, would you expect me, even though I'm not your husband, would you expect me to defend you as a black man? And she said no. And I said, why would you not expect that? And she said, because you're not my husband. I said, but I'm a black man, and I'm a man on top of that. And she said, well, I just wouldn't expect it. But then, a couple of conversations later, she said, you know what, I thought about what you said, and you're right. She said, I would basically lose respect for you because it doesn't matter that you're not my husband. It matters that I'm being threatened, and you're a male. I'm being threatened by a male, and you're a male, and you should be able to try to defend me in some way. So I think it's just a defense mechanism that has been instilled in us from both the days of slavery as well as today, where men, and speaking of black men in particular, are afraid to put their life in a position where they could lose it in terms of the black female. And I think that's because they've lost respect not only for themselves but for the female themselves.
I being part of that generation in my mid-20s here, where a lot of people say, well, slavery was so much in the past. Why would you bring this up? What's so important about it? It's over with. It's done. It's X hundreds of years ago. I don't understand why people are still talking about this. And I hear that a lot from people, going to the university setting now. When I was in college, and even the people I'm around now, and I think that mentality comes from at least when we're speaking. I've heard a lot from white people. This singular phrase is that I don't dislike or hate African Americans. I have friends who are African American, and then they list out some stereotypes as I don't like the black people who do this or the black people who do that, but they're still that's still a form of racism in itself. And I think that somehow that mentality, that way of thinking about the issue, as in they're not perpetuating some type of racism, but they just don't like certain things, is maybe some kind of like reversing the victim scenario in that. That way of thinking kind of probably matches the thinking of that slavery was so long ago, it's not important, or African American culture back in that time period is not important because it was so long ago. I think you could draw some parallels in those two types of thinking.
Has anybody dealt with having a racist white instructor where there was a problem with your grade and you felt like they were practicing racism and giving you a lower grade than you deserved?
Yes, I experienced that.
If you could share like tips on maybe how to deal with that situation. I don't know if you were able to navigate your situation successfully, but I guess some lessons if you learned anything from that experience.
Well, I learned something years later, and at the time that it occurred, I was angry because I had moved from the South to the North. I was seen as, I really don't know what they saw me as, but they didn't expect anything of me, anything good. And because I was so young and didn't fully understand, because I had not been told about racism, white supremacy, I was angry at this woman. So my mind was not open to looking at the situation and learning from it. But years later, after thinking about it, because I haven't forgotten it even till this day, it stings me some because it was in English writing, and I'm an excellent writer. And today, I'm still angry. I'm angry because I know, like the fifth grader, injustice. We're still talking about these things. They're still experiencing this. So because of the anger, I don't know what I learned, to be honest with you. I really don't, other than to be patient and close my mouth and sit down and learn something. That's about it. I was very combative with her as well, very. So I went to the office a number of times.
That's another suggestion that I have that might be preemptive. Go meet with your professor at the college level. Make sure you go see your professor during office hours. That can be a big help. They get an opportunity to meet with you and kind of connect. That can be very helpful if you do need assistance or a letter of recommendation down the road. That can be very helpful. So make sure you go see your professor. Trying to think with the grade issue.
I think that what definitely would be helpful for a student in college right now that's having that type of issue is that I know what helped me was getting to, like you said, go to your professors and talk to them on your own time. Make it be known to them that, you're a person and not just another face out there in the crowd where they can stereotype you and can judge you. I think that before each semester, when you get your professor list, you should try to at some point go and just talk to them, and I think that will probably nip the situation in the bud. But if it does happen, I'll bring it to the professor's attention. But one instance is, sadly enough, to be realistic here, is not going to do much for you because it's really your word against that professor's word. And in one instance, there's no pattern to go by, so most likely it won't be acceptable to the dean. But what I would be wary of is a pattern. You could see it in your work and it happens more than once, then, it's definitely time to escalate it further than that professor.
Hakima, did you have something to say?
basically, I probably would ask the professors questions too, and also I would actually study your professor and just try to learn how they think. That's also helpful.
Greetings, may I be heard? May I be heard?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Oh, thank you. This is Mr. Nero, Mr. Renegade. Thank you so much for opening my line. I'm enjoying this show, learning a lot. I did not attend college, but I wanted to piggyback on what the young lady stated in regards to preparing the children, that, we're not preparing them to deal with racism. Then in my observation, that we're not preparing them to deal with anything, that we expect white people to prepare them, because we stick them in their schools, and then we stick them in front of the television when they get home from school, and whatever little information we're giving them after, in between after school and the time they go to bed, unfortunately, just isn't enough to overcome all of the information that they're getting from school and from television and from other aspects of media. White people subscribe to prudent planning. We really need to take a lot of pages out of that chapter. And begin to do the same thing.
Context of white supremacy, I did want to make sure I got in White Johnson. He'll be on the program tomorrow. That would be Sunday, January the 16th. The program will be at 8 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, and 5 p.m. Pacific. Umar Abdullah Johnson, looking forward to having him back on the program. Justice, did you want to share your email address, blog, or any other thoughts you had?
Sure. Justice.asap@yahoo.com. Again, justice.asap@yahoo.com. Blog address, justdojustice.blogspot.com. Again, justdojustice.blogspot.com. And it's been a really interesting show.
Has been great. Young people. Always great to hear young people, folks who haven't had as much experience with victimizations. That's great. I hope we can hear more of the young folks and folks outside the states. I'm very serious about that. I had two folks contact me today from outside the states, and they said they were listening to the program, and it's just really cool to see non-white people who are, tens of thousands of miles away, finding some constructive value and dialoguing about white supremacy. So definitely want to make that program happen this week, and several programs.
I agree.
Justice agrees. We want to make that program happen this week, and as I said, several programs where we can get people in from outside the states calling and sharing their view on racism, white supremacy. I just think that would be a big boost for the non-white team. Anybody have other thoughts they wanted to get in?
Sorry.
Oh, no, ma'am. Go right ahead.
No, I was just going to say that is one thing, white supremacy practiced globally. That is one thing that I really learned this semester. I had took a course about border crossings by people. White people traveled to different countries to live, and it was just really sad because I read about women who had to leave their children behind, and they came to countries like Europe, or, basically just came to white people so they can find jobs, and they left their children back in their home country, and it was just really sad. And also learned about the political aspect of it, like a lot of the white corporations took advantage of the resources in Africa, Latin America, and Asia, and it just made me cry. So I can't wait to hear non-white people from different parts of the world speak about racism, white supremacy.
Mr. Gus, this is Nanny. I'd like to know how to contact you with suggestions for shows for this month.
You can shoot me an email. My email address is untiljustice@gmail.com. Untiljustice@gmail.com. It's just like it sounds. Anybody out there has suggestions may do the same. And if you do not make the suggestion, I don't want to hear any gripes, because I announce that pretty regularly, and I have been able to comply. A lot of people who have made requests, someone made a request for this program, someone made a request for the films. We've done so many programs, I don't even remember the movies, but I think Unthinkable was one of them, and I don't remember the other title, but yeah, people have made suggestions. I've tried to make them happen, so something you would like covered, this would be the time to make a suggestion.
Is Justice still on the line?
Yeah, I'm here.
I listened to that Pink Swastika author, and I couldn't help but laugh at Justin's last question. I just wanted to give her kudos for that, because, after listening to it, I felt like, even though she didn't name call, I felt like she was almost like saying, "Cracker, you know you was out there practicing racism. Tell the truth, you cracker." Even though I know she didn't name call. But that's what I was hearing in my own head, and I just busted up laughing. Just thought it was hilarious.
And on that show, he was practicing racism.
I agree.
I have one last question. This is Nanny. Mr. Gus, I know in your area, because I lived there a long time, that relationships between whites and non-whites is prevalent, and it's overflowing, if you ask me, as well as lesbianism. And I want to know if those kinds of relationships is washing over white supremacy, racism. Is it being hidden or not discussed because of those kinds of relationships?
I want to make sure I'm understanding the question correctly. Are you asking if racism, white supremacy is not being discussed because of white people and non-white people having sexual intercourse, or because of so-called homosexuality?
Yes, even casual relationships where they're not doing either one of the two you just mentioned.
Oh, okay.
If they're friendly.
Okay. Well, if you put it that broad, I would say absolutely, because it's not a ton of black people in this area. So if you are here, you're going to have a lot of contact with white people, most likely, and most non-white people are confused. They're getting a lot of time with white people, going out to the movies and going to the market, going to play basketball, going skiing. It's going to be a lot of that, and most likely a lot of opportunities to have sexual intercourse with a white person as well. And there is a lot of the homosexual stuff here, so-called homosexual stuff. I believe a non-white person in this area just shared that they had, I believe, gay bowling night not that long ago down the road. So there is a lot of that here, and non-white people get sucked into that as well. So I think it adds a lot of confusion to people who are already confused. I'm picking up some background noise. It sounds like somebody's watching TV, or I'm hearing the show, actually. If you could turn your computer volume down. Thank you. So, yeah, I'm hearing still. Mute your line if you're not talking. That would be helpful. Thank you. But, yeah, the homosexual activity is here, and it is leaking onto the non-white people who are getting involved in that misbehavior as well. And, I mean, it's also got a reputation for being what white people call a liberal area. And so you have a lot of people who do talk about racism. Dr. Eddie Moore Jr. Is, headquartered here. Tim Wise came here to speak. It's an area where they have Black Panthers, people who used to be in the original Black Panther Party. They had a chapter here, and some of those folks are still here, and they give talks on a regular basis. Aaron Dixon was a former Black Panther Party member. He ran for local political office. Just a big prep. Bobby Seale has come here to speak several times. It's just got a reputation for having a lot of discussions about social justice and racism. So it gets talked about a lot, but it's just very confused because, you got so much of the sex thing and the so-called homosexuality thing, and just a lot of contact with white people that it doesn't really go anywhere. You have a lot of very confused non-white people in this area. And I can't even say a lot. I have to take that back because there's not very many black people here. So you just have a small percentage of black people here who are very confused, and a lot of sex with white people out of that confusion.
Would you include Native Americans in the statement you just made? Because there's a large population of them in the area.
I don't see as many of them, which is sad because this used to be like all of them. The so-called Native Americans that I have come in contact with, some of them, they are also not doing very well. I would say they're also confused, but they're just not doing very well, period. I have met some Native Americans who are more informed about racism. However, one of them is so-called gay. The other says she is, best pals with a white person who I strongly suspect of being a racist white supremacist. And this white person, in addition to being a professor, her name is Georgia Roberts. Georgia Roberts, she's a professor at the University of Washington. She has listened to this program before. She's writing a book on Tupac Shakur, very dangerous white woman. She has led study abroad groups to Africa. I strongly suspect she's engaged in sexual intercourse with non-white people, and she was brilliant at reeling in non-white students to just think she is the coolest white person ever, most definitely not racist. She's down for non-white people. She loves Tupac. She teaches a class on Tupac. I mean, very dangerous white woman. Very, very dangerous. But the Native American person that I knew who was less confused about racism, she just loved this white person. So, yes, it would have to apply. A lot of confusion, still a lot of confusion for them too. It would have to apply. Maybe be a little different, but the confusion is still pretty glaring across the board.
Good night, everyone. Take care.
Thank you for calling in. Always good to hear from you, Nanny. Did anyone else have comments or questions? Or any of the folks that called in who are on the line, you can press 1 if you want to talk and your line's been muted. But any of the folks whose line is open, did you all have comments or questions? Alrighty. I saw a hand up. I'm going to assume everybody's good. I will get the last person who dialed in with a hand up, and then we can wrap and get ready for tomorrow's program. Thank goodness. Person who called in from a blocked number, the person who just put their hand up from a blocked number, did you have a question or comment or whatever?
Hello, Gus. Good evening to you and to the callers out there, as well as to the listeners online. I missed most of the show because I just got back in and I was trying to make it in time to hear what was being said. So I will just go back in and listen to the podcast to get the full gist of what took place today. But as always, I'm sure it was very constructive and informative. One other thing I want to quickly mention to you, Gus, I happened to listen to a call-in show. It was coming from Washington, D.C., and one of Tim Wise's counterpart from the white anti-racist movement, this is someone new, so I will give you his information and perhaps you might want to get him on the show. His name is Jeb Middlebrook, Middlebrook, and his website is jebmiddlebrook.com, jebmiddlebrook.com. And I was asking him today about Dr. Welsing and about, since he's in the anti-racist movement, and what his thoughts are on non-whites engaging in sexual intercourse with whites. And did you know I almost got a beat down over the radio?
From who?
Wow. From who was a black female and Mr. Middlebrook. Because when he said he was a counterpart of Tim Wise, I said, okay, I know I'm going to be in for something very interesting, because when I started questioning him about Neely Fuller, Dr. Welsing, and asked him if he ascribed to what they put forth there about non-whites having sexual relationships, and they were saying, well, I don't see what it has to do. I think that would be more productive, being in interracial, intimate relationships. I said, no, it does not. I said, it has nothing productive to do with what you're trying to do if you want to stamp out racism, white supremacy. So the host, she almost was ready to terminate the phone call, and Mr. Middlebrook also was ready to terminate the phone call. So you might want to contact him and see if you want to get him on the show and have him explain himself as to exactly what it is that he's trying to do.
I'm looking at his website now. It's going to be a whole new army of these folks. I can see it. He's going to probably be at the White Privilege Conference soon, I suspect. His dissertation, this guy, Jeb Middlebrook, his dissertation is titled "Challenging the White Supremacist System, Anti-Racist Organizing and Multiracial Alliance in the United States?
He had nothing, because the first thing I asked him, I said, okay, the crowd that you mostly make your speeches for, I said, what is the racial makeup of the crowd? He said, well, they're mostly white and people of other non-white. And I asked him, and he said, yes, he was very good friends with Tim Wise. As soon as he said that, I said, okay, I could see this is a fan club type situation, and there's nothing constructive is going to come from this gathering. And when he said that he did not believe in whites and non-whites not having sexual relationship, I said, oh, no, Gus needs to get this man on his show. He almost hung up on the call on me today. I said, okay, I'm going to give Gus this information and let him get this gentleman on the program, because this seems to be that this is another waste of time, effort, another feel-good moment where these people are coming up with artificial information and they're not getting anything productive done.
That's so funny. This guy's a professor. This guy is a professor. He's a professor at the University of Southern California, the Trojans, right? This guy teaches black politics, and he teaches intro to African American studies.
Oh, no. That's why I lost it today.
Wow. That is a fitting end, I think, to this program. This is what is waiting on you, ladies and gentlemen. So hopefully, parents, this will be good motivation to prepare your children. You know, the same thing that they're running into in college is the same thing, apparently, that is running rampant in the fifth grade classroom. Homosexuality and white women trying to get their hands all over you. Better tell them as soon as possible so that they will be prepared to deal with the likes of Peter Tatchell coming into their elementary classroom. Because if you don't, you know, you'll have Jeb Middlebrook waiting once they get to the college to teach them all about black politics and African American studies. So, you know, get on the ball, do your job so your child will be prepared to deal with these folks. We will be back tomorrow. Again, that would be Sunday, January the 16th. The program will be at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, and 5 p.m. Pacific. Mr. Umar Abdullah Johnson, he'll be returning. Should be lots of fun. Always a pleasure to have him on the program. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Please invest. And folks who are not in the States, definitely shoot me an email. I'm definitely trying to do several programs this month and at least one this week. So folks outside the States, get that Skype account and dial in. Love to hear from you. Context of white supremacy. We will be back tomorrow. Replace white supremacy with justice immediately. Gus signing out.